Hello everyone, Artiom from Agile Analytics here. In my previous video, I demonstrated how with no DAX or additional data modeling, you can create a report page where users can pick a date and see data for a number of particular dates prior to this date. Today, I'm going to go through a bit more complex scenario with a little bit of DAX and more advanced approach, but it is again relatively this approach will be relatively easier to something that you could probably find on the internet. So if you missed the previous video, I strongly recommend you to check the link in the comments below and watch it first, because it will help you to understand what we will do now. Okay, so let's start. This is the report we created last time, and as you can see, we have a date picker, which is basically a before date slicer, which users can use to pick a date. And for our solution, we used a top-end filter in quite an unusual way. So we basically said filter dates by itself, by dates column, and show us top 10 dates in these two visuals, or top one data for top one date by date for these visuals. And as a result, having these two things in combination, before date slicer and top n slicer filtering dates by dates showing top n number, we achieve the result. Now I'm going to go through a bit more complex scenario where, let's say, business users asked to be able to change that number of days dynamically. So they want to be able to select how many days they want to see on the page prior to the selected date. Okay, and the first step for that will be creating a parameter, numeric range parameter. We will give it a name, number of days to display, with the range from 1 to 1000. Let's say default value will be 10. And also we'll keep this tick to create a slicer on the Power BI page. So when I click create, Power BI will create a disconnected table in my data model with just one column, populated with numbers from 1 to 1000. And also it will create a measure that returns the selected value from that range, selected from the slicer. Okay, now we will slightly modify the slicer. We don't need a slider here. We don't need a header. The value size will be 16. And we will also add a little bit description, so users know what this slicer is for. I'll just copy this shape and resize it and change the text. I will say enter number of days to display prior to the selected date. Okay. Now we have the slicer to show how many days we want to display. Now we need to go to the second part. Somehow we need to make Power BI understand, and we'll again use the top end filter, visual level filters, that we want to see only 15 days. So this number and this date together must give us the result. And to show you how I'm going to do that, first I want to illustrate that to you using an example, so it's clear what we are doing. I will create a temporary visual table. I will bring in my dates here. So I probably should slightly change the settings so it's easier to read. Okay. Now what we have in the table is a list of all days prior to the selected one. why we have dates prior to the selected one? Because on this page, we have a slicer that filters everything. And it shows, because this slicer is a before slicer, it filters out everything after the selected date. So if we select, for example, 1st of December, the remaining dates will be everything, all dates from our date dimension prior to 1st of December, including 1st of December, okay? So now we need to have these two numbers also included in our logic to identify which out of that days are within that 15 or 10 days prior to the selection. So next step, we will need to bring that selected date in our formula, in our table. And for that, I will write a new measure. The name of that measure will be selected date. I'll just slightly increase the size of the measure. Okay, so, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna say, I want to see selected value. Oh, sorry, not selected value. I want to see maximum date from our date column of date dimension. Okay, and we will change the format of that measure, and we'll create another temporary visual. It will be a card visual, and I will bring in this measure here. So let's check. It shows me the date that I select here. Okay. Now, why maximum? Because we have all range of our dates prior to that, so we want to see only the selected one. Now, when I want to bring that date in our table, I will have a little problem now, and I explain you why. So you see, now it shows me exactly the same date like in the first column. And the reason for that in this table, for each row, we have two filters applied. One filter is external filter that is coming from our slicer, and it leaves us all dates prior to the selected one. But because we have this date column as the first column in our table, it also filters each row based on the value in this column. And that second filter leaves us only the date itself. And our formula that shows us maximum date from date dimension shows us the same date because it doesn't have all the range. Okay, so to fix that, we need to go to our measure and change modify filter context. Now, if you're not familiar with filter context, I encourage you to do a research and find articles and videos on that topic and understand it well, because it's very important to know what filter context is when working with Power BI. Now, there is a function called calculate that can modify filter contexts, and we will use it here in this way. So we will say that we still want to see a maximum, but we want to modify filter context so that it will apply this formula only for the values that result from filtering from outside. Like you see the description of all selected that I just used, returns all the rows in the table or all the values in a column, ignoring any filters that might have been applied inside the query, which in this case is our table, but keeping filters that come from outside, which is filter applied from our slicer. And that's exactly what we need. So when I hit enter, you will see that now the selected date will show us the correct value for all dates. Okay, so if I change it, it will show us the correct one. Now we need to see if that particular date from the first column is within the number of days indicated in our second slicer. And for that, I will write another measure. So I already have it written. Actually, I will just explain to you what it does. Okay, so this is the measure. It's called number of days to display flag. I'm creating an indicator that will check whether we need to show data for a particular date or no, based on our selections, and it will work this way. The first variable I have in this will just bring us the number indicated by users, how many days we want to display it in our second slicer. Selected day we already discussed. It will use the same logic like we have for the second column. So it's basically the date selected in the first slicer. Day to check selected value is the selected value of our first column. So it will go row by row in the column, and it will return the same date for each row like we have here. Now, difference is the difference between those 2 days. Like it will just calculate what's the days difference between these 2 dates. And the result of our measure will be based on this condition. So if difference is less than days to display indicated in the second slicer, then the measure will return 1. Otherwise, it will return 0. So if I click enter and if I bring in this measure in our table, you will see that we will see once for the number of days indicated in this slicer, the rest will be zeros. If I change my selection, we will have once for 5 days here. Okay, so that's exactly what we need. Now we can actually apply that in our logic. Why I show that to you? Because the way top-end filter works is similar. It takes each and every date from the dates in our date dimension, and it checks it by this value, and it returns top n days like we want. But we will use flag, our flag measure here by value, and we'll say return as top 1. Now, what does that mean? That flag value can return only 2 values, 0 and 1. And by saying this, we will say to top-end filter, okay, return us data for all dates when flag indicates 1. And that's it. That's all we need to do. I will apply the same logic to the rest of the visuals. And we should have the result we wanted to achieve. And the last one. Okay, yeah, here it is. So now if I change the number here or the date here, the result will be updated automatically, and that's exactly what we wanted to see. That's pretty much it. Post your comments, ideas, what you think about this solution, and see you next time.